Hello, hello, everybody. How are you doing? It is good to see you all. So let me kind of set this up for you. This is a little bit different setup. As you can tell, I'm not in my normal space here. And just want you to know what I'm doing, and we'll get started. So I'm actually not at home right now, so I'm actually traveling. I'm at the University of Iowa in Iowa City, Iowa. It's a lot of Iowas in that. So I'm traveling, visiting a friend, and having a little getaway vacation. So that being said, I am on a hotspot when I'm doing this live stream, but I wanted to make sure that I stayed consistent and gave you a chance to speak with me, as we usually do. And if there are any connection issues, I do apologize. I'm doing the best I can while I'm here on the road. So it's very, very good to see you all, and thanks for coming by Saturday Chat Live here on the 26th of February. And we'll have a casual chat for about 30 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer, just depending on what sort of questions or comments you have, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. So, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about current events. I'm not sure exactly, honestly, how many viewers I have in Ukraine, but I wanted to let everyone know, if you are watching from there or know anyone there, that my heart is with you. So me and my channel stand for hope and love and democracy, and all of those sorts of things. And I wish all of you there the best. It's been quite moving to see your resilience. So my heart is with all of you all. Yeah. So what else is going on in the channel? As I said, right now I'm sort of traveling, and I want to get back to the channel stuff when I get back to the house. And yeah, so as always, if you have any comments or questions, please put those in the chat, and I will do the best I can to go ahead and answer those the best I can. And then we'll see, where we end up. So that's kind of the way this chat works. It's very, this is very informal. We can chat about whatever you want. So how we got going on here? So hello, it's a great pleasure to meet you on Saturday. Well, it's great to meet you too. Thank you for coming by the channel. It's wonderful. Glenn, nice job getting a t-shirt to indicate where you are at. Absolutely. When in Rome, you do as Rome. So I always try to, obviously I love higher education just in general. So if I'm in a college town, which is like my favorite place to be, I always try to, support the school I am near. And this is just my Iowa shirt to support the University of Iowa. It's really, really pretty here. There's a little bit of snow. I'm looking south over Iowa City. I can see the Iowa River. It's really, really pretty. A little bit of snow on the ground left over, but it's going to warm up and that will go away. But beautiful sunny day, as you can see in front of me. But I'm glad to be here. Brian, one of the best explainers of stats. Well, thank you, Brian. I really appreciate that. As I've always said, I stand on the shoulders of teaching giants. And without all of those teachers I've had in the past, and my parents, of course, instilling in me and my brother a love of learning, and the belief that education could set forth the life we would want to live. And actually, my parents want us to have a life better than they had. Without all of that, I would not be where I'm at. So I'm grateful to all of those people that allow me to come to you and help you out, whether it's in your classes, whether it's in your career, so you can have the life you want. And it's just paying it sort of forward. So Brian, it's very, very kind of you to say. So thank you very much for your comment. Yes, heart is with Ukraine, so all stay safe. Yes. And of course, I know there are many places in the world where things are, are going off the rails and are not quite right. And one does not diminish the other, of course. So right now, heart is with Ukraine. Can you give a simple explanation of Bayesian versus frequent statistics? A simple explanation. Here's kind of here's my layman's way of explaining Bayesian versus frequentist statistics. So frequentist statistics, based on taking samples from populations and making inferences based on, those statistical measures, is sort of a scientific way of generalizing from something small. However, Bayesian is actually the way I think a lot of us live our lives when we make decisions. So we think about probabilities of certain events happening based on, probabilities in the future based on probabilities in the past. And therefore we calculate what we do or do not do based on those probabilities. So mathematically, it's much more complicated than that, of course. In Bayesian statistics, you obviously have to understand Bayes' theorem and probabilities and prior probabilities and posterior probabilities and all kinds of probabilities, of course. It's just a different way of thinking about a problem. There is no right or wrong way. One strategy might work best in one situation, one strategy might work best in another situation. And it just depends on the nature of the problem, or sometimes you can tackle a problem both ways. But one is frequentist tends to be based on, using large samples to make inferences or other predictions or stuff like that. Whereas Bayesian relies on a series of probabilities, like a probability chain almost, to make those sorts of things. And I will be the first to admit that as many people who have worked in statistics throughout the past 10 years or so, Bayesian statistics is relatively a new way of approaching statistical concepts. So like a lot of through my schooling and graduate school and things like that, I was never exposed to Bayesian statistics. Of course, I learned probabilities and Bayes probability in a typical probability setting, like you would learn traditional probability, finite mathematics, and stuff like that. So I'll be the first to admit that I still have a lot to learn when it comes to Bayesian statistics. I've done a few courses on it and read several books on it, and it's just a different way of thinking about a problem. And if anyone else in the chat has a way of, a simpler way than me rambling about it, please offer your comments and thoughts to Brian, because we want to help each other out. So Brian, I may not have offered you the best way of thinking about that, but I would just recommend, if you're wanting to learn more about Bayesian statistics in particular, because it's based on probability, and probability itself, at least in the United States, in my opinion, is often left out of a lot of mathematical classes and curriculum. There are many students who go through their whole K-12 education in the United States and never really learn about probability. So I was tutoring students at the Indiana University when I was there, and in finite mathematics. And a lot of those students had AP calculus, but did not understand fundamental concepts in probability. And it's not their fault. They just weren't taught it, So, and I was one of those people at one time. So really, it's just going back to studying those fundamental ideas in probability. So probability trees are a good place to start. Independent events and Venn diagrams, very basic probability type stuff. And then especially probability trees is a good place to start. Of course, Bayes' theorem is a great place to go back to, and just think about how we might make certain predictions based off prior probabilities. Does that make sense? But again, I think we actually live our lives largely in a Bayesian. We live our lives and make decisions moment by moment in a Bayesian way. Okay? I'll give you a perfect example, Brian, and everyone else that's listening. So here in Iowa City, like in many college towns, it's very hard to find a place to park, right? Because there are apartment buildings everywhere. I'm in like a 14-story apartment building. So parking is very hard to come by. So I was going around looking for somewhere to park that wasn't a parking meter, that wasn't obviously parking set aside for residents of an apartment. It was really difficult to find a place to park. So there's a little side street that didn't have any parking meters or anything like that. But the weird thing is, on one side of the street, it says you can only park there on even numbered days, and on the other side, odd numbers days. I swear. So in my mind, I was thinking at what's the probability that if I leave my car here, that it's going to be ticketed or towed away? And then if that happens, what's the chance that I could go get it? So I'm thinking about chains of probabilities about what decisions I'm making. And I think we all sort of tend to do that, So yeah, that's one way I can think about it. That's sort of an everyday sort of way of thinking about it. We tend to make our everyday decisions based on prior probabilities, trying to look into the future on future probabilities of what may or may not happen. So, all right. Good. I'm glad my rambling answer was good enough. I do hope that helped. Farshed, what's up, my friend? Hope you are well wherever you happen to be. Obviously, let me know where you are. Let me know where you're watching from. Of course, I always try to do that at the beginning, but because I'm sort of out of my usual routine, like it would be at the house, I kind of forgot that. So let me know where you are. If you haven't before, let me know where you are watching from. And if you're new to the stream, also let me know that. I do appreciate it. And while I'm at it, I do want to get to this question. I'll come back to that question. I do appreciate it if you can. Super chats and PayPal tips are welcome. That helps support the channel. Of course, I put a lot of time and resources and equipment and everything into the channel. I don't really ask for a whole lot in return, but if you do have a few dollars here or there, even if it's buying me a cup of coffee, that can get me through several hours of work in a coffee shop. So if you have a few dollars here or there and you can drop them in the super chat or a PayPal tip jar, I'd really appreciate it. But that's the last I will say about that. And I'll get back to the comments. I'll wake up here. All right. So what is the correct pronunciation? Some people say Bayesian and others say Bayesian. I've always heard and said Bayesian. So, Bayes is the individual who Bayes' theorem is named after. I forgot his first name. I know it's Frederick Thomas. Anyway, so I've always said and heard Bayesian. So 3 syllables, Bayesian. Yeah. But you can say it however you want, I guess. If you hear it multiple ways, then it's usually okay to say it multiple ways. Okay. The chat is going strong. So I want to make sure where I am at here. There's a siren. So Bayesian. Okay, Bayesian. That's how I say it. All right. Do you have any book recommendations on statistical learning theory? So there are obviously many statistical books. If you're talking more in the realm of theory, like something a statistical PhD dissertation might be. I stay in the realm of practical sort of things in statistical learning. Obviously, trying to teach students how to get through their classes, so it's really practical in my sense. But the Introduction to Statistical Learning, the ISL book, which is a Springer book. I think pretty sure you can get it for free online. So the ISL, Introduction to Statistical Learning, is one I can recommend. It does go more into the mathematics behind that. You can also consider, picking up a free or low-cost course on Coursera or Udemy or LinkedIn Learning, maybe. I'm sure probably has some by now, or even some YouTube channels that go into the theory that you can walk you through some of the more conceptual, theoretical things with statistics. But, for me, I kind of stick in the realm of just helping people learn the material so they can get through their class or get through, whatever program they're in for their career or whatever else it might be. So those are some resources I might recommend. But if you're looking for a book specifically, the ISL book is a good place to start. All right, that's what we got here. Yeah, it's a philosophical difference. Yeah, you can kind of think of, Bayesian versus frequentist as a philosophical difference. It is a different way of looking at the world and understanding events that have happened or may happen. And, one technique is sometimes good for one or the other. And sometimes you can use a combination of both. There's no really right or wrong answer unless that technique is implemented in a way that's completely incorrect. And of course will lead to incorrect assumptions. Well, incorrect assumptions go into it and could lead to incorrect outputs if you apply that wrong. So sometimes you can look at, the same problem in different ways. Another Bayesian versus frequentist example you will see sometimes is the weather. The chance of precipitation, is oftentimes, it's really a Bayesian question, right? So there's no right or wrong unless it's implemented wrong. So, all right. There we go. So Glenn, good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Glenn, you're doing great work. I commend you on all the things you are doing, all the presentations you're working on. I know it's hard and can be challenging putting yourself out there. Sometimes having that imposter syndrome at times. So I really commend you for doing that and putting in the work, and also for being obviously a loyal, viewer here on the live stream on LinkedIn and stuff. So I really do appreciate that. So how do I shift from applying statistical methods to being confident as a statistical analyst? So confidence comes with time and experience. There is no substitute for just putting in the time, the effort, and the experience. So confidence comes from, I won't say a lack of self-doubt, but it's the managing the self-doubt. Confidence to me is knowing that I might have doubts about what I'm doing or have a little bit of imposter syndrome, but confidence to me is knowing how to manage that. And no matter how big my channel gets or anything like that, I still have those feelings too. I still have imposter syndrome all the time. So I know that I don't have a PhD in statistics. That's not my sort of, the game I'm playing in. But I'm a really good teacher. So that's what I focus on. But having imposter syndrome on some of the statistical stuff is something I experience too. So my confidence in that comes from being able to dissect it and then explain it to other people. And that's kind of how I learn. So I think confidence just comes from, talking to ourselves in our own head and knowing that those sort of thoughts are natural. They happen, and it's being able to manage them as you go. But confidence comes with time. And of course, speaking with others, asking for feedback, being open to feedback, being open to constructive criticism where it's appropriate, and not seeing that as an attack, but taking that in and using that to make oneself better. It's like a sharpening stone. You take the knife across the sharpening stone. Every bit of feedback and constructive criticism you get just sharpens the knife on the whetstone, and you can kind of see it that way. All right, so I can say more about that as we go, but I want to make sure we get to some other comments, of course. So yeah, Glenn, just hang in there, my friend. You're doing all the right things. Everything you're doing is right. Just with time, it won't happen. Brian is in Miami, Florida. That feels nice down there. I'm literally looking out this window at snow and ice, and it's so cold. It is so cold here. Like, it's the cold that just like instantly, like, it's like instant facelift cold. Like your face is just kind of pulled back. So yeah, I bet you it feels really nice in Miami. Really nice in Miami right now. I hope to make it to Key West at some point. I've always wanted to go to Key West and just put on, some shorts, a tank, and some flip-flops and a hat, and just kind of roam around Key West. That's kind of my kind of vibe. Haven't made it there yet, but Miami does sound nice. All right, Heidelberg, excellent. Naveed, Toronto, another place I want to make it to. Toronto. I've said in previous live streams, I'd love to like spend a month in Canada and just kind of like almost go province to province. I've been to Vancouver once, one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful place I've ever seen. It's really my I love the Pacific Northwest area of the United States, and of course, Southwest Canada. I loved it up there. So I'm hoping to go back. So Toronto, awesome. I'd love to go to Toronto and see that. So going with this probability, I tend to park without paying after 5 p.m. since most cities, in my opinion, do not have parking police after 5. No statistics, just personal experience. And Glenn, I think you actually hit on the idea of Bayesian thinking with that. No statistics, just personal experience. Of course, we can quantify our personal experience, right? We can measure that and other people's personal experiences and the probabilities of certain events happening or not happening. And that is a different way of thinking about, how we experience and interpret the world. Like, based on these things that have happened, what is the probability this would happen? What's the probability that that will happen? And that's kind of how we think. Sort of in towns like this and other towns, college towns especially, there's no parking on the weekends, right? So there's no the meters aren't monitored on the weekends. So obviously that factors into what decision I make in the future. So I know from prior experience, the prior probability that getting a parking ticket like on a Sunday is 0 because there's no monitoring. Now, on a different day or different time of day, that probability of getting a parking ticket or getting your car towed, might be different. So it's all based, you look at the situation, the criteria, like, oh, it's 6 p.m. on a Thursday and it's a rainy day and there isn't much going on. So the probability of getting a parking ticket in a meter might be low because it's in the evening, it's a rainy day, there's not really people out monitoring parking things when it's raining outside maybe. So you make the decision to go ahead and park in the space, right? Same thing with maybe driving a bit above the speed limit. You kind of weigh the probability. What's the probability that one, I might get a speeding ticket or get in an accident? So like when I was driving here to Iowa City, my probability in my mind, I don't drive way above the speed limit, but maybe about 5 or 10 mile an hour over but only if there's no one around me. Like if it's in traffic, there's a lot of cars around, I don't do that, or whatever else. So it's just about Bayesian thinking is about understanding the events and the circumstances and the situations around you. At least that's my lay person's way of viewing it. About what may or may not happen. And I've always said we think that way. We think that way. All right. Glenn, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate that, my friend. It's very, very kind of you. Very generous, as it always is. So thank you. All right, moving on. For me, I've been following your classes and coding at the same time to learn and remember the more technical language. Yeah, so that's another thing. I'm not a coder by nature. So my day job does not require me to be, coding all day. I learn enough to get done what I need to get done, So I've been doing some prototypes on some programming modules because by doing those sort of programming lessons, I'm actually kind of teaching myself how to learn it and teach it, which is very common for teachers to do. So being able to apply the statistical concepts, in this case, to like the coding concept is, marrying those two together is a great way to learn both at the same time. So if you type in like R norm, into R or whatever, and it will generate some random data. Just by doing that, you can look at histogram, you can learn more about, quartiles, you can do all kinds of stuff just by doing some statistical ideas in the software and then do some things with certain commands like box plot or whatever else you want to do to learn the stats through the coding, right? So that's kind of some stuff I'm working on as well. All right. What else we got? Put all your questions in here, please. Hi, great teach. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Appreciate that so much. Hello, Sky. Waiting for the meeting. Excellent. So here we are. Excellent. So if you just joined, I just want to kind of set the stage. I'm only going to go for a few more minutes probably because I do have other things to do today. And I'm, like I said, not at home. And I'm kind of doing my best with the live stream over a hotspot connection. So when I do get back home after this little vacation, I'm going to work on sort of the next series of videos on the channel. I have a few more to do in the variable transformation playlist. And then after that, I want to see kind of where things are at, kind of see what topic I want to go to next. Because you all have suggested several topics that I can go to next. I'm just going to decide what that's going to be. So working ahead the best I can, and we'll continue there. So I'm not sure I understand this question. What's the probability of having better return on investment ratios in green investments in times of Z minus 2.5, The 2.5? I'm not sure I can really understand that question, Ferrati. Maybe if you want, message me on LinkedIn a bit more detail. Let me see, I'm trying to look at the chat here. Yeah, the question. This is the question to be answered in every changing 0.1 values of Z. So obviously I know what the normal distribution, the Z distribution is, plus or minus 2.5 deviations. Is that sort of what you're sort of getting at? Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that. So why don't you reach out to me on LinkedIn and maybe provide a bit more context or something like that. I'll be happy to do my best to answer the best I can. On that note, I do know some of you do reach out to me. They're on YouTube and or LinkedIn. I do my very best to get back to everybody I can. It may not be immediately. Sometimes I just find a day and kind of go through previous messages to go back and answer the ones I can the best I can. But it's just a matter of time. I obviously have my day job that I do every day, plus the YouTube, plus another side gig that I do, plus just life. So I do the best I can to get to any questions or whatever else you might have on LinkedIn or YouTube. So if you don't hear from me right away, just hold tight or remind me. I'll do my very best to get back to you. It's just I run out of minutes during the day. So it's not anything personal. I just run out of minutes and time. So, okay, what other questions, comments do you have? We've been going about 30 minutes here, so I don't want to sit here and talk to you unnecessarily. But yeah. So do you have any other comments or questions? Now's the time. Once the chat sort of dies down, that's when I go ahead and wrap up the stream, because obviously you don't have any questions for me, and that's kind of why we do this. But I did mention was it last stream or something like that, I think. Another good way to learn about statistical ideas and things of that nature are to look for them in popular culture. So I mentioned a show I was watching about, what's called Dope Sick is the show. I think it's on Hulu. I think it's on Hulu, called Dope Sick. And it's about how pharmaceutical industries, one in particular, the maker of OxyContin, manipulated data and graphs in particular to make it look less addictive and meant to make it look like the amount of drug in the patient's system was steadier than it actually was, because they manipulated the y-axis into a logarithmic scale. So, and there are many things in the news and other types of popular culture things where you can find evidence or examples of statistical ideas that are used or misused. You can learn there too. Look for things like that. That have, and those, like in that example, it has dire, just horrific consequences, because, lay people don't understand. They look at a graph and it's kind of flat, but then they don't look at the y-axis where the tick marks go from here to here to here to here to here. Like the tick marks change in their units. So just look there as well, if you want to learn some more about this kind of stuff. I'm an avid reader, so I read a ton of books on not only stats and stuff like that, the design of experiments, but also a lot of just newspaper articles, magazine articles. I read a lot of, or watch a lot of film and documentaries and stuff that have data as a part of their central core. And I have learned a ton, like pragmatically, I've learned a ton about statistics, data science, machine learning, AI type stuff, just through popular culture, materials. This doesn't have to be like, reading a 500-page book that's as dense as lead. You can just read all kinds of stuff, and you'd be surprised on what you learn. And I've always said, always be an avid reader in your field or discipline. So if you are studying statistics, data science, whatever it is, machine learning, AI, whatever else it might be, in the field of finance, in the field of healthcare, in the field of environmental science, whatever else it might be, read in the discipline, not just focus on the stats and data science and machine learning. Understand the broader context and scope of the discipline, because that, in my opinion, that is what makes you valuable. If you understand your field of study, you understand your discipline, you understand the broader context, so all the pieces fit together, how this connects to this, and this connects to those two, and this connects to that, and all the levers. If you move this lever, this moves. Understanding cause and effect in the discipline. That's what makes you a valuable employee. That's what makes you someone who can move up, say, a corporate ladder, or be your own consultant, form your own business and be a consultant. Understanding the broader connections between things. I'm a person who prefers to learn, on a scale of 0 to 10, instead of learning a 9 or a 10 about one thing, I'd rather learn a 5 or a 6 about 10 things. Because all the connections and nodes, boom, 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 that point to each other, that's where my knowledge sort of comes from. And that's just the way I experience it, So, all right, that was my little rant on, how to well-round oneself as a professional in a given field. I think sometimes people do get too focused on the stats or the machine learning models or the coding or whatever else without the broader context of understanding the field in which it is being learned. And I can't stress that enough, because those things will change. Like, auto ML is coming, it's here, right? So the whole system that can, train and then test and validate all kinds of models and tune all kinds of hyperparameters automatically. It's already here. So, but the thing is, what's the application of that? What is the meaning of that in the field or the discipline in which you are working? That's the thing to learn. So really do that in addition to the other stuff. But that's just my opinion from what I see as an educator, as someone who works in business, someone who has my own side business, someone who reads a whole lot in various fields. That's where I put my focus. Okay. All right, go back to the comments here for more minutes. Just finished a linear algebra course at SNHU. Last project was to look at application. I bumped into immersive in-ear monitoring, which take live performances back toward an old school feel for a performer. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So that's a good point. Augmented reality or virtual reality or the metaverse is going to, for better or worse, fundamentally change things. I'm still a bit skeptical on the privacy and stuff like that. But, just knocked my water over. But these immersive experiences, I'm not saying, Len, this is exactly what you are talking about, but in general, these immersive experiences that substitute for our own senses is where we're going, and it's just we need to think about the implications of that, both good and bad, as we sort of move forward. All right, that's pretty cool. And things like that can actually help individuals who have certain limitations. So these sorts of technologies can actually be a benefit to individuals who don't get to experience the world, maybe as a quote typical person does. So we can think about those applications as well. All right. Could you go into how Monte Carlo simulation? I'm hoping to do some videos on Monte Carlo simulations. I love the idea of simulations. A lot of things we do sometimes are actually pseudo simulations, in a way. So anything from linear optimization, of course, things like predictive analytics, of course. So if we don't know the value of a parameter or some other variable, we can actually randomly choose that from a predetermined distribution and build into that simulation the fact that we don't necessarily know the exact figures, but we know sort of the distribution and the range they might come from, and just tell that simulation or that optimization algorithm to go in and just pick something from that distribution and see how it affects our objective function or output or whatever else we're doing. So I love the idea of simulation. I would love to go into more things like that. And I think it's a very fascinating sort of thing. It's a way of making predictions and forecasting into the future without knowing exactly the inputs you want to put into it necessarily, but you kind of know the distribution they come from, you know. And actually, this is how casinos work, by the way. So, you know, casinos run these simulations. I mean, just millions and probably billions of times with supercomputers now. So they can predict with great accuracy exactly how they need to adjust their games, how they need to adjust the amount of money you have to pay into a casino game, for example. How they might change the payout for certain odds, because they can run these simulations just over and over again. And car insurance or insurance companies do the same thing. You know, they run simulations based on certain loss criteria. So simulations in general I find actually really fascinating, and I hope to do some videos on it, as you can tell. All right, that's right. Simulation helping predict probability of a range of outcome. Yes, so that's kind of exactly what I was talking about. You know, it can be really, really, really cool. You know, a really, really cool thing to explore. And I do hope to do some videos and stuff like. I have a natural interest in simulations, Monte Carlo simulations. All right, we're doing great. Saludos from Chile. Hello, Diego. Good to see you. Good to see you. If you're just joining me, greetings from the University of Iowa in Iowa City, Iowa. I'm looking out at the Iowa River right there. I can see the Iowa River south right here. It's pretty cool. So I hope you all are doing well. I will be back home, obviously, for the normal setup in a couple weeks. All right. Yeah, I think that's really more about presenting and predicting the future as a range, as opposed to as one answer. Exactly. So not only the output as a range, but also the inputs as a range, you know, is really, really fascinating. And they can get really, really accurate because you can run these things so many times, you know. Now, of course, you know, simulations are like anything else. Simulations are subject to things like black swan events. You know, these outlier events that a simulation can't always predict because it is coming from a certain distribution and a certain set of assumptions. But I do think it's really, really fascinating, and it's around us everywhere. You know, everything from the software, you know, Tesla and other EV, you know, makers put into their software, to insurance, like I said, casinos, like I said, financial markets, of course, you know, these sorts of things are all simulated out, you know, millions of times potentially, which is really cool, really cool to me. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give this maybe a couple more minutes to see if y'all have any last minute questions before we wrap up this live stream here from Iowa. I do want to say this is the time of year, you know, mid-February. If you are in school or something like that, this is the time of year that things can get sloggy. So I encourage you to hang in there if you are in school, or if you're working on a long-term project, just to keep at it, you know, bit by bit, and you'll get there. So I believe that you will, and I know you will. And it's a thing when you have a channel like, you know, like mine or any other similar channels. It is the perfect example of a self-selecting sample, right? So the people who go to YouTube or go somewhere else to sit and watch hours of videos to work on their homework or to work on a project for work or whatever else, those individuals are a self-selecting sample based on the broader population who aren't willing to do those things or put in the time. So I know just by the fact that you are here and you watch the videos and things that you are more inclined. This is a Bayesian question. Because you are knowing the fact that you are here watching this video on YouTube, watching my videos and other videos, the fact that you are doing that increases the probability, you know, posterior, that you'll get where you need to go, right? So just keep hanging in there, and you'll get through whatever it is you're getting through, and I'm with you all the way, of course. So, All right. Well, we're about at 40 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Oh, go ahead and one more question here. Next two terms, I have Calc 2 and 3. Oh goodness. So it might be around slightly less. Yes, yeah, Calc 2 and Calc 3. Oh goodness. But yeah, Glenn, good luck with Calc 2 and Calc 3, my friend. That's probably going to be beyond where I can help you with anything. But you know, I only went through Calc 1, I think. It's all I needed to do was through Calc 1 for what I was doing in education. So you got it. Just hang in there and you're very, obviously, Glenn, you're very resourceful and you know where to go, find whatever help you need here and there. And just obviously the primary focus of your time should be, you know, on the education that you're working on and of course your projects and work that you're doing. So if I don't see you around here, you know, as much, perfectly fine. I want you to focus all your efforts on those things that get you where you want to go and make you happy. And this channel and me will always, well, knock on wood, will always be here. So you just drop by when you can, my friend. You know, we're all here to help you and support you. All right. Yes. So Brian said yes to something. Maybe it's about simulations. Maybe it's about anything else. But yes, I like yes. Yes is good. All right. Well, my friends. Oh, let's see here. Oh yeah. So Faradi, yeah, just put that in an email or put that on put that in LinkedIn, of course. Last thing I'll say before I go is that, you know, as of right now, as of the moment that I'm doing this live stream, I don't do YouTube for glory or for recognition or anything like that. But the channel is getting ready to cross 260,000 subscribers. So if you do know anyone that needs the help in statistics or anything like that, make sure you share the channel with them. If you have classmates, make sure you share the channel with them, because I do it to help people. And if they watch my videos and I'm not their cup of tea or cup of coffee, that's fine. But at least they know the resource, you know, is there. So, you know, please share the channel, not for my benefit, but for their potential benefit. And if they don't like the channel, that's fine. So, all right. All right. Thank you for your tutorials. You are very welcome. Hope to see you again. You will see me again, of course. But all right, everybody, I'm going to wrap this up because we have other things to do today. And again, it was good talking to you here from the University of Iowa in Iowa City, Iowa. And I will see you again, at least live, in a couple weeks. So take care. My thoughts with everyone in Ukraine. Love you all. And, you know, I'll be rooting for all of you there. And it's all just try to live in a world that's full of peace, hope, love, encouragement, and democracy. And I will see you again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.